are here.
Hey, week 2, version 2.
Week 2,
Congratulations.
version 2. Wow.
2.0. Joe
Season
2.0.
1, episode 2.
Yeah, as a writer, that's the way you look at it.
Season 1, episode 2.
Episode 2, okay.
So we're here. We're going to do it again. My name is Joe O'Connor. We have Dean Baker. We're over at PFX Media, PFX Media. Hello, Facebook and YouTube. And enough about me. We have Chris.
Watch the banging on the table, please.
Chris Ballinger is here.
Yes, thank you.
Hey,
Yes.
Chris.
What's going on?
Not much. Happy to be here.
I'm very happy that you're here. I'm very happy that anybody would come and do this with me.
Oh, absolutely. I left work early to come do this.
Oh, that's an honor. Thank you.
Yes.
That is
so
cool.
That's how much I was looking forward to it, and I appreciate you asking me to come out.
Hey,
No
Sevilla just joined
Sevilla's on her way.
Yeah, Sevilla, we're going to expect for you to be chatting with us here. And Justin Robinette, he is also here.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
So
okay,
sorry to interrupt.
so let's do it, Chris. So
Yeah, let's go.
are a filmmaker,
Yes.
and tell us about your filmmaking career. How did you get into film?
I got into film through acting.
Oh, okay.
So I started as an actor in 2006, 2007. Actually, I wanted to be on a reality show called, well, everybody knows it's Survivor. So
Oh, okay, cool.
That's embarrassing. I don't know, but I wanted to be on that, and then somehow it just morphed into acting. I had met somebody at that time that was an actor. She was an actor as a kid in this area in LA, and
So you were living here,
I was living here at the time. Yes.
and did they have like auditions for Survivor, like here, like what?
No,
made you
I
say,
did an online thing. You do it all online, and I didn't even have a passport, so I had to go get a passport.
I had to get a passport because I was an actor.
That's
And
right.
Like I needed
Exactly.
just in case I get the role.
And at that time, because I was a firefighter before, so I was working at the fire department, and I talked them into making the because you got to shoot a video of you just doing some weird shit to do that. So we shot some stuff at the fire department, shot some stuff around where I.
Oh, so you were like really like, hey, you were caught. You were bit by the bug, as we say.
Yeah. So I wanted to.
Did you get a shot for that?
What? No, different thing. You were
for
out
the
of the
bug.
room. You were out of the room. So wait a minute now. Wait a minute. So you're just living a normal life, and you have this relationship with media, with television, with film, and all that. And just out of nowhere, you got caught by the whirlwind that was. What is that show kind of called? Like what
the
type
Survivor?
of no,
The reality?
reality television.
Well,
and
I mean,
you thought I can do that.
Yeah, I guess I didn't feel like I knew. I mean, I wasn't an actor, so I'm like, and they're not actors, so I'm like, well, I guess I could do that. I could do that. But as a kid, I wanted to, I always watched Johnny Carson, and you always imagine yourself.
I miss Johnny Carson. I
yes.
really miss Johnny Carson.
He was great. My
We
father
can
and I used
use
to
him
watch him
now.
all the time, and it was a lot of fun. And you can always imagine just being up there and what questions like we are now, like getting interviewed.
Absolutely.
So
Now we portray that in films like Joker as a completely different thing.
yes,
You know what I mean? Like Johnny was.
I would have been scarred for life if I saw that. I guess I don't want to do an interview then.
I thought Johnny Carson was great.
Yes.
I loved it.
Hey now.
Even as a little kid, even as a little kid, I loved it. And I can remember not caring for Dave Letterman.
am I Ed
until I got
McMahon?
older.
No, not as much.
Yeah, you're Ed McMahon.
Or
yeah.
am I Hank?
Well, you're not Doc.
Definitely,
definitely not Doc.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't bring the horn.
You didn't bring. Yeah. It's your show. I'm just hosting it.
Oh well.
Right.
It's your show.
Yeah, you're the executive producer. Okay, so now you go hog wild. You say, guys, help me out. I got to get a video and do this and make this submission and and it's awkward and weird. It's your first time on camera. It's with other firemen, like friends.
Yeah.
You're like, yo, I'm gonna, I'm fit. I'm a fireman. Like, let's do this. I can survive.
Right.
Let's get me on that show.
And the other thing too is it's a bunch of firemen, so they're like they're razzing you the whole time because they joke about everything. So they're like, "Oh, come on, you really want to be on TV?" And
it probably wasn't.
I took a hit for that for a long time.
And then so you send it in, and you just never hear back.
I never heard back. I never got. There's levels you got to go through, and I never.
And this is like on VHS tape.
I don't remember what camera we used, but it was
But you had to probably send it in by VHS, right? Because that show's got to be 15, 20 years old, right?
It's 20-something years old at this
So it
point.
had to be VHS.
Yeah, it was early on.
So who edited it?
We just kind of shot it all together.
You just did it in sequence,
Yeah.
like just.
We did it in linear order.
So it was one take.
one thing all the way through. You know what I'm saying? So I've progressed further now that I'm doing filmmaking,
Yeah,
which
now
is
that-
kind of
yeah,
funny
yeah.
because now I know how what I'm supposed to
I
do.
know now. So do you edit your own work?
I've edited some of my work. I used to do travel videos.
Oh, really?
Because I did a lot of traveling because now I work for an airline.
So wait a minute, travel videos, like you had like your own travel channel like on YouTube
I
kind of thing?
I still have it on YouTube. I just haven't done it a lot lately because I don't travel as much with my job.
Yeah.
And then I like actual narrative film
Yeah,
more
yeah,
now
yeah.
than I like
Yeah.
travel videos. But I'll still do those sometimes. But yeah, I have a YouTube channel on with that.
How many videos are on that?
There's like 5 or 6 on there.
And you went, and so during your travels, so you work for the airline, so you fly for free, but you pay
Right.
the taxes or something, right?
Right.
So
Well,
it's really
these were
cheap.
actually when I was working, so I would be on a layover.
Oh, so you wouldn't even have to pay.
I'm getting paid.
You're getting paid.
I'm getting paid to do
and
it,
they put you up in a hotel because
Right.
you're only allowed to do a certain amount of time in the air or whatever.
Right.
So what's
they
your
say you,
YouTube channel name?
The 24-hour layover.
20.
Oh, so it was even.
Yeah,
centered
well,
around
that's the thing is,
idea.
I'm a big fan of Anthony Bourdain.
Okay,
God rest
yeah.
his soul.
Yeah.
Because he's an amazing wordsmith. He
Yeah.
wrote all his stuff. He wrote his book, The Kitchen Confidential, which became a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah.
So I liked his videos and I liked how he wrote.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where it kind of pushed me towards writing more a little bit. But
Oh, really?
he had a show called The 24-Hour Layover. So I kind of took that, but not. It wasn't the exact same verbiage, but it was kind of fun.
You know, if as a you grew up, how long were you up north for? Like, what age did you leave the tri-state area?
About 27 years ago. So 20s, in my mid-20s.
So you were in your 20s, because New York restaurant culture is no joke. And a guy like Anthony Bourdain and a couple other people, like, you went to restaurants just because the chef was famous or whatever. And this was before even we had the Food Network and other things, like we all knew who the chef was in a certain place, So,
Right.
so you were reading this guy's books way back then?
Not way back then, but I started watching his show and then started reading his books.
When that first book came out, like, nobody went to a restaurant on a Monday. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it was like the first time someone told us, like, hey, guys, what part don't you get? Like, we
Right.
buy everything on Thursday, and by Sunday,
It's
it's no good. So don't go out to eat at a restaurant on Monday,
Right.
Like, at that time. Nowadays, though, I think it's a little different because it's a never-ending rotation of fresh food now.
Correct.
But when he wrote it, that
Yeah.
was most certainly the truth.
True.
Yeah,
Very true.
All right, so now you get yourself some sort of camera and you start making and editing your own videos. When did you decide to do narrative? Like, how did narrative films come in?
Narrative started just a little over a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Because like I said, I was doing the acting from 2007 for about 10 years. And I started liking stuff behind the camera. I did a stand-in work for a project around here called RoboDoc. It was big back in 2007. It was a full-length feature that was shot here in Orlando by some Orlando people. It was ultra low budget, like $3 or $4 million budget. But I was a stand-in
Those
for
poor people getting a $3-4 million
$3 or $4 million,
budget.
and it's still ultra low, right?
I feel so bad for them.
It's ultra low budget.
It's ultra-
ultra low budget.
Still ultra low.
I
But
feel so bad.
I got hired to be Alan Thicke's stand-in.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
I'm looking. Now, I would have thought he was shorter.
We were the same height.
Really?
And it's so
Okay.
funny. That's why you become a stand-in. It's like,
Yeah, it's
well,
a height issue.
It's a height
Yeah, and a
thing.
complex.
Yeah.
It's a
Only
lighting
about
issue and
that
height.
height.
It's all
Yeah.
about lighting. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
it's lighting and height.
And
Yeah.
I was, I knew that because I was brand new to acting. I had
Yeah.
no credits. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I know why you're hiring me because
Yeah.
we're the same height.
Exactly. Yeah.
Funny thing about stand-ins, one of the last webcasts, somebody had mentioned we had a stand-in for Willem Dafoe here.
Oh yeah, I don't know if we're the same height though. I get that a lot.
Probably not.
I can see that.
Probably
So
not the
much.
same. I don't know. You never know.
I've been in restaurants and they bring out the book, the autograph book.
You
know?
need to work on
Really?
your
And,
your
yeah, 'cause
Willem
they think
Dafoe
I'm him,
voice.
Even here, I was at a restaurant here, and the waitress asked me like, "Are you that famous actress that was in Spider-Man?" Like, The green guy. He played like the Green
Goblin,
Goblin. You know?
You just work on the voice. You
And
gotta
it's
work on the
amazing
voice.
that it's. I would love to work with the guy, but it's amazing to me that a man with his career in our business. Every time I get asked about being him, it's always the Green Goblin. It's always Spider-Man. Like
nothing else. They don't know anything. They don't know anything
the depth of cinephiles in the world is pretty low. You know what I mean? Like, to like and
not
you're
like
talking
the
about Spider-Man from 20 years ago.
Not like
that's
the
a long
epic
time.
film Platoon or something.
Yeah, they don't pick Platoon like Platoon.
It's funny because I just watched a movie of his,
Which
Togo.
one?
It was a Disney movie.
Oh yeah, how was that with the dogs and
It was
stuff?
very good.
Right?
It was very good.
Actually, I wanted to see that one.
It got pretty good rating on.
And Boondock Saints, the cooler people will bring up Boondock Saints.
Yes.
They'll bring that up.
Yes.
All right, so you do this Alan Thicke's. So now you're on like a semi-professional set.
I worked the whole production.
There was union involved, right? There was like professional gaffers, professional.
Yeah, it
everything.
was like DPs and cameras.
Yeah.
First AC, second.
Yeah.
There was a second unit.
Like 50 people every day showing up, 30
Good
people.
30, 40 people every
30,
day.
40
yeah,
people
it was
showing up.
so. That's where I kind of got into like, wow, that's kind of cool because as a stand-in, you're standing there watching them all set it up.
And they're measuring you. This is like it's
they're
on
with the
film,
tape measure.
right?
Yeah,
the
tape.
Yeah.
The tape measure and everything. I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool,
and light stops and the whole thing. Like
right.
They're doing it.
Yeah,
all.
they're doing the light. Yeah, the DP's walking around like, that's.
Yeah, back in the old days.
Back in the old days, yeah.
Now
Before you don't use those things anymore. Yeah, that's
action.
Right. Yeah, anybody's a cameraman now, but
everybody's a cinematographer now.
But yeah, so that kind of got me into the whole like, wow, that's kind of cool. There's a whole nother side than just being an actor.
I think it's like either behind the camera is a very different world than in front of the camera.
It is.
And it's only a handful of people that want to do both. Either you will not go behind the camera, and you're just an actor or an actress, or you want to live behind the camera and you'll never get in front of it.
Yeah, you talk to those. Because I went to film school for a little while, and you talk to those people, and they don't want to know. They don't want to do anything on this side of the camera.
No.
They're scared of it. They're absolutely not.
No
And
way,
I'm like,
yeah.
you'll probably be fine,
Yeah.
So,
And you'd think that they would understand it even better. Like, I wish that more actors understood the process of filmmaking from behind the camera because, A, they wouldn't get upset when I say, hey, we got to do it again. Like, it's got nothing to do with your performance. Like, we screwed up or, somebody kicked the leg, or it went out of focus for a second. Like, they don't, so, and their ego plummets and then they don't give the same performance, or they don't understand, you can't do that. Like, because on, 40 feet, you're making the whole audience dizzy, you gotta, you gotta move,
Right. So I feel like I have both sides of it pretty good because I started as an actor. Now I know how they are, and I know how the crew side of it is at the same time. So I think it makes a more well-rounded person if you can do that. Because I know as a director, they're always like, take acting classes. I'm like, well, I did that for years. So
you did. You took a whole bunch of classes.
Yeah, I took acting classes here in Orlando for years and years and years and years.
And were they like? Was it more based on theater? It was like a lot. What was the material that you went over?
It was scene study, a lot of scene study work, and
from like movies and television, or
yeah, you could. Well, yeah, that was part of it where you picked TVs or movies to do scene study work with, and then it was very the ones that I did were Meisner based.
Yeah.
Acting workshop, acting theory, I guess, and how and acting practice.
Yeah.
Through Sanford Meisner, which was
absolutely
an amazing acting teacher back a long time ago. So yeah, I did Artsake, which is a local company here.
So you did theater?
They're not a company. I mean, they're well, they do theater. They have a theater called Play de Luna, which is really.
Oh, that sounds familiar. I've never.
Yeah, Artsake was started by Yvonne Suhar, which was she was an actor, LA actor.
Okay.
She did really well, and then she came here and started acting classes, and they were amazing, very well grounded, and just it was.
So you start learning. So I think that some of the best acting happens in classes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I could film what took place in acting classes, everything would be brilliant.
Right.
But then you put out in the real world with time constraints and all these things, and people, it just becomes a very, inside your class, it's safe.
There's a lot more pressure on the set.
On the set, there's no safety. You don't feel, you don't know the people standing around you, and all of a sudden they're like, go, and you're like, oh, I thought I had a question, and they're like, yeah, we're rolling.
Right.
Well,
yeah, those classes are a very safe space.
Yeah.
And you see people, it's funny because you go there once a week and you see these people walk in and they look like they've been beat down, and when they walk out, they look like they're on top of the world.
Yeah,
and it's an
yeah.
amazing feeling, and you get really close to those people.
It's like almost addictive.
Hugely addictive. And not to add more classes on, but I went to Sac Comedy Lab, and did all their classes.
Oh, like for stand-up comedy or for improv?
Their improv, because I love improv. My big thing is comedy. And
I got to tell you, dude, not only are your films funny, and I think you're very talented, but I think that other guy that you use a lot, that you put in front of the camera, is wildly fantastic.
John,
I guess.
John,
I don't know his name, but
yeah,
he's
John
great.
Connon. He's
John Connon.
Yeah, John's he's
on?
chatting.
Okay.
Yeah, he's.
That guy-
I told him to get on.
In fact, he put a shout out to Art's Sake Studio.
That guy's talented, man.
Thanks,
That guy's
Chris
funny,
Ballinger.
dude. He's
Yeah,
great.
so-
I would love to film that guy.
Yeah, I told him. I said I was going to mention him.
Yeah.
So he can come on because he is really interesting. He's done amazing stuff. He was just in the last It movie.
Oh, he was?
Yeah. So and he's a great writer.
Because that's not a funny movie.
It's not a funny movie, but it's so funny how comedy and drama are very close.
We also have Geraldine McLaughlin stopped in to say hi.
Oh, awesome! Hello.
Yeah, so I'm guessing these are friends of John.
I think that comedy is drama really fast.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's and then there's the
Not
only
enough to
other
think about
thing-
it, so you're just like.
Yeah, well, that and nobody's allowed to get hurt in comedy. So in drama, we allow ourselves to get hurt.
Right.
In comedy, a brick building falls on Laurel and Hardy, and they get up and go, "Look what you got me into this time,"
Right.
So nobody gets hurt in comedy, but it's actually heightened drama.
Did you
at
not
a
watch
faster
The
pace.
Three Stooges?
You know what I mean?
I
That's the
can't
thing, though,
imagine
like,
you didn't watch The
Oh
Three
my God!
Stooges.
How
you
much
know?
Three Stooges did I watch?
Yeah.
It's,
Well, falling is always funny. It's always going to be funny. You can.
I'm
you
not
can throw
somebody.
a falling.
My father once fell on a banana peel on a New York City street, but that's another story. But he's like literally hit the banana peel, slipped up, legs in the ass, flat on his back.
Right.
But because it's something you thought only happened in the movies.
Right. Right.
It's like or cartoons even, but I don't. I forget why I brought that up. What'd you say right before that?
I was saying about Sac Comedy Lab, and then
Yeah.
that I went there, and then
Is Sac still running?
oh yeah,
Yeah. I haven't been there in years.
I
but,
mean, they've been shut down.
Obviously since the shutdown.
They've been shut down, but they're starting back up very soon.
That's great.
I read so.
great.
They're a very. It's a good group of people there.
Yeah.
And I think anybody. I think improv should be for anybody, and because they do teach classes outside of that, so it's just like to get anybody out of their shell and just make you feel okay to mess up. It's okay
Yeah.
to mess up.
And
that's why I was
Meisner-
getting to that, because it's okay to.
Yeah.
To just-
completely,
okay to
absolutely,
just-
absolutely. I think that once you find freedom as a performer, then you can really do the work.
Right.
And it doesn't always come. And if you do it more often, you get much better at it, at being free. But I think that especially with Meisner and theater games and all the things you do and some of
we
these
did all
acts,
those
those theater games are great, man. And you wind up with a lot of freedom that you didn't have. So when I became an actor, at the time I was a very active musician, and I remember going to the head of the school and saying, I'm a better musician because I take these acting classes. Like I hadn't been
Like a
on
better
stage.
performer.
I'm a much better performer because
Right.
Hey,
my
guys.
freedom is like through the roof. Who's that?
Who's on the phone?
This is John Connon.
Hey, we have John Connon here. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing terrific. How are you guys?
Good. I'm glad you called in.
Me too. I'm getting a little echo.
Well, we can't do
Sorry.
much about that. If you've got your laptop on when you're on the phone, that might be a thing. We can't really control it from this end. So,
All right, John. So tell us something that Chris doesn't want us to know about.
wait a minute. You don't want to do any kind of.
Go on, throw him under the
Scandals.
bus.
And
Give
scandals,
us a.
right?
No.
What's
Chris
the
is
worst part
awesome.
about working in front of Chris's camera?
Yeah, there you go.
I love it. All right, so what's your best experience then with this guy on camera?
We've had so many really fun times. He came up to me about doing Art of the Deal, and that was such a fun script that he created, and so I was really happy to be a part of that. And from there, we just decided to do just a bunch of new projects, and they've all come together
John,
really
you're
nicely.
not painting a glowing picture that we've got in front of us here. You know, you're just kind of, maybe you need to have a cup of coffee here and really kind of dig in.
I didn't start sweating until John got on the phone.
Really?
No, kidding. He is dealing with echo, though.
Now he's nervous.
Yeah. Now I'm nervous. John's on the phone. So, okay, cool. So,
No. That was the thing. It's like that. John and I go way back because we were in acting class together.
Yeah.
Way back, Art's Sake and all that stuff. And we knew each other throughout the years, but we hadn't been a lot of contact. And I wrote this Art of the Deal, and I came to him and I listen, I want you to play this. And he was so just accepting of it. He's like, let's do this.
And you guys already had that bond that you.
We already had a bond. We already knew each other. We'd done acting class together, so we'd done that. But I had never made a film. That was my first film as a filmmaker, producing and writing and directing. And I needed somebody that was amazing and had the connections. And he's an amazing actor, and he had all the connections because he brought most of that crew.
Oh,
and
really?
that we use now today. And like you said, it snowballed into just a lot of projects for me. And then he's done a project, and then the dad from Little Z, he has him and another wonderful actor writer, Rachel Thompson. They've been writing sketches, so we're doing 8 sketches.
And now, so what are you guys working on right now?
We just finished one of John's projects, a horror movie, and then we're working on Chuck, the dad from Little Z. Him and the other girl wrote 6 or 7, 8 other sketches.
Based on the same theme of Little Z, or
No, not even the same. Just funny, almost like Saturday Night Live kind of things.
Oh, cool.
To film, and then put on a website called Playground Punks, and to get that out there, just to put content out. We were trying to get 8 done so we could put out on a regular basis.
That's
while
cool.
I work on my project Little Z, and then we're all gonna shift over to do my project because Little Z was a standalone film for the contest, and then I decided to make it a web series.
And so how far along is that web series?
I wrote, the first episode shot for that, so I wrote 5 more episodes to make it a 6 episode series. And right now I'm gonna, because of the virus, I've kind of postponed everything, but I'm going to crowdfund for that.
Oh, cool.
So I'm working on learning how to crowdfund because I'm like, oh God, I don't even know how to crowdfund anything. I've never done that before, so.
It's a whole art unto itself.
It's a whole nother thing, and it takes away from oh my God, I just like writing and directing. I'm now I got to work on the whole, business side of
we're absolute hacks, and we're forced to wear every hat under the sun.
It's yeah.
So John, tell us what do you want to? Anything else you want to add to this conversation, John?
I just think what's really important about making films, and especially when we're doing this independently, is just how important relationships are. And you really learn that when you're working on film sets and how people work together and make things easy. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway is the importance of establishing really good relationships.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
No. I 100% agree. You can see that from major films to here. You see the same people working together all the time, and it's a perfect example of once you find that group of people. We have a cast and crew that we like to work with, and that's what we're gonna
My crew gets smaller and smaller with every film.
Hey, just to hop in here, Gregory Moan just
all right,
signed
great.
in, and he says, and you got a Best Actor award from that Art of the Deal, so there's that.
He did. John won Best Actor for that.
Oh, you won?
Yeah.
Congratulations, John.
Yeah, we got nominated for 6 things. He won Best Actor for that. Yeah.
So Charlene Johns also jumped in.
Oh, she's from New York. She's a
he's
good
saying
friend of
hi,
mine.
Joe. We
Hi,
remember you
Charlene.
when, LOL.
Aw, thank
Yeah.
you. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, Megan Byron just joined us. Hey, Megan. Megan was an intern for me years ago before she moved off to LA. I believe she's in LA, obviously waiting to go back to work. But Megan, nice of you to join us. Chat in. We want to hear from you.
Yes, please.
So, like John was saying, the funny thing about what we do is so difficult. It's literally impossible. We do the impossible. Theater is a little worse, but basically we do the impossible, and there's no room for a bad attitude.
Right.
There's just no room for it. Like, I can have a meltdown for 5 minutes. Fine, everyone will give me my 5 minutes.
Right.
Each one of us can stumble. But when you hear some of these horror stories,
I've heard of it. I've been lucky. I've just been lucky that hasn't happened yet. But I do hear those horror stories, and I think we've all had a meltdown on set.
Yeah. You got it. So,
But you have that other person next to you to go.
Yeah. Like, hey. Yeah.
Snap
go,
out of it.
Go around. Go over there for 5. Go take 5.
Take 5. Just 5 because we don't have a lot of time. And we're working.
So
against.
actually, and then you direct all these things, or your work.
Yes.
How did you prepare to become a director? Like, you just started telling people what to do, or like, did you read books? What did you do? There's no school for directors. Like,
No, there isn't.
yeah.
I mean, you can do film school a little bit, but
It's called the School of Hard Knocks.
You know what I mean?
there,
Like,
son. I tell
yeah.
you, it's the School of Hard Knocks.
I think you learn a lot about yourself when you ask other people.
it's funny that I YouTube has helped me out a lot with everything. When I want to do something, I have to know everything.
Yeah.
And I get obsessed with it, almost to the point where it's
I'm
not
a bit
not
of a,
healthy.
Yeah, I do a lot of research myself.
So
yeah.
I just, it was so funny before Art of the Deal. I think I watched everything. I think I had to watch everything. Well, because I didn't know any of these people. So I'm like, well, what if the cinematographer doesn't know what he's doing? So I'm like, oh my God, so I got to know what lens and what light, and then I'm like, what if the audio guy doesn't know? So what are the levels are that we're not gonna clip it and all that kind of stuff. And I was so nervous.
I didn't do that. I was a little bit more relaxed than that.
Looks like John Cutler.
Thank you for coming on,
John. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I think that
He listened to me and said, I asked him to phone in. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Cause we were talking with Justin last week about, the fact that I'm a jazz head. So there's a certain amount of preparation that you do, and then you need to let go of it. So, like, for me, I did a lot of research on what the hell I was doing, but you can't do it all, so you're going to get it wrong, parts of it.
Right.
And then you just take your lumps and your lessons and you move forward, But, yeah, after I did that, my first film, where I was the director, then I knew exactly what I needed, all right, so I got that and that wrong, let me research that. But I didn't know beforehand what to research, But it's funny how you bring up things like the level meters on the recording and whatnot, because
I was just so
as
nervous.
a musician, like I own all this gear and I have all these recording things, none of them are used in film. It's a completely
it's completely.
you bring this to a film set and people are like,
Yeah.
get out of here,
Right.
But I did on this. So what I did was I started asking my drummer, who loves to mix and do all these things, and he's got great ears, and he's a great musician. He's got great ears. So I said, Dan, you got to be the guy on the boom,
Right.
and he had no interest in it whatsoever, but he did it because we're buddies and we hang out, and he's like, all right, I should make him mix it. I should make him edit his own work, and then he'd realize he because it's one thing to capture it, it's another thing to what you're actually it's like it helps that we can hear the guy. What we don't want to hear is the car and the fan and the refrigerator and the so it's like
Well, it's so funny because you said that, and I'm like, what does a director do? And that was the one thing you can't really look up. A gaffer does this and a cinematographer does this, but I'm like, what does a director do? And I finally figured out that it is just somebody that brings the best people together with the same idea in mind. to do the
Well,
project.
your producer does a lot of that as well, but your director is.
Well, I was a producer too.
Yeah,
so I was
yeah.
like, oh, I
You
got
gotta, and you got to be careful with some of that stuff because I mean, Costner did it, got his trifecta back in the early '90s
Yeah.
with Dances with Wolves, where he acted, he directed, I think he even wrote.
Yeah, he
maybe
wrote that.
I think he
Yeah.
even wrote that. Pulled the trifecta, and you got to kind of wonder. That was pretty young in his career. He was probably in his late 30s,
Right,
early
30s,
40s.
yeah.
And you got to kind of wonder about something like that where. I'm sure who's ever putting a lot of the funding, there was a ghost director, on the set going, keeping him,
Right.
keeping the content right.
Well, that was John was my ghost person because he
On
had
the first one.
On
anything.
He's just my backup for anything
yeah.
because he got me almost all the crew except for Greg. Greg happened because I lost my cinematographer 2 or 3 days before the shooting
God.
out of the deal, and I was like, oh my God, no.
Yeah, that's.
And Greg came in and helped me and saved me, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, that's cool.
Really appreciate that, and I'm
that'll
keeping
form
you
a
now.
bond. Yeah, that'll form a bond. I think.
But yeah, you're right. There's probably somebody back there.
Sometimes, as a director, for me, sometimes you're a cheerleader, sometimes you're the guy who's got to say no. You're many, many things, but I think it's about having a single focused vision,
Right.
and asking everybody to join you in it, and taking everybody's input, but then transferring it through that single vision that only you have.
Right.
You're the only one that gets the final say on the vision.
Which is not easy. It's not easy to
It's
get
not
everybody
easy.
to look the same
Yeah,
direction.
and you have to let them know kindly that, okay, that's great, but it's not the vision.
So as a director, let me put this to each of you: what actor in this world, dead or alive, would you have liked to direct it if you got the opportunity?
Oh God,
Yeah,
the thing
pick
about
one before you die.
the thing.
You get to direct one actor in a film.
Well, it's different for me, right? Because there's some actors I'd like to act with.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
and then
right.
some that you want to direct, right? So I don't know if I ever thought about it as a director. As an actor, I'd like to work with Sean Penn. You want to work with, some of the,
Right. Well,
some of the people that are off-hinged. Coming from theater,
Off-hinged.
the
Well,
more
there you go, Sean Penn.
unhinged,
There you go.
the more unhinged, the better.
I like to see you
know.
and William Dafoe work together. Yeah.
Me and Willem Dafoe, no problem. I'm down
That's
with
right.
that anytime. But
I
he
would've
may
thought-
be a little unhinged, but he's not as unhinged as some of the others.
No.
I would have thought Robin Williams would have been something to actually see on
Absolutely,
set,
to see
you
his
know.
creative.
Yeah,
You
to see it happen.
That
yeah.
Jack Nicholson now or then.
Yeah, anytime.
Jack
yeah.
Nicholson and all those guys.
Again, though, I'd want to act with these
Yeah,
people.
I have a
don't
conflict.
wanna-
I have a conflict because I like to act at the same time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up watching John Ritter. I was huge.
Oh, John Ritter was
I was
a huge
fan,
talent.
being
Yeah.
a comedy guy, and
Yeah.
he was like a slapstick fall down kind of
Yeah,
comedy
yeah.
guy, and I think I wanted to work with him, but I would have loved to have directed him as well.
But you
too.
do like comedy, though.
Yes.
You love comedy. What made you go towards comedy? Like, what's the funniest thing you remember of your youth? Like, what was the most funny movie, that you watched 15 times?
Whew.
Like, what's your comedy influence from the earliest age?
I'm trying. God, that's a good question because I have to think about that.
Bugs Bunny?
I mean, I did love cartoons. I mean,
Right.
the Roadrunner,
The Roadrunner,
I mean, those guys.
slapstick. That's all
Yeah,
slapstick.
I mean, getting blown up all the time and,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
still coming back, and
Yeah.
As far as a cartoon goes, that was for sure.
Yeah.
I would watch Three's Company every time I came home from school every day,
Yeah.
nonstop.
I knew I should have made that left turn at Albuquerque.
Yeah. There's an interesting.
But I have to think about a movie. I would.
Yeah. You weren't drawn to comedy movies necessarily.
I don't know about comedy movies. I was more like the wartime movie because that was big. Like.
Oh, really? Like as a
Missing in
little kid,
Action and all what's his name?
Oh, what is that? Missing in Action. I don't know if I know that one.
What's his name? The karate guy.
Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris.
Oh, Chuck Norris.
Missing
Have
in
you seen the memes now that are going around? Like Chuck Norris actually died, but then he came back because you can't kill Chuck Norris. Yeah.
I love all the memes. Yeah. Yeah.
Chuck Norris died from coronavirus, but he's back.
Right.
He's like in his 80s now. I mean,
Yeah.
Chuck Norris was a badass when we were kids, man.
There's
He
a
was
guy that
badass.
acted with right alongside Bruce Lee, and you know.
Well, I mean, it was all those like,
boom.
and then like, I just liked all action movies back then. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger and
Oh, so you're maybe a little younger than us because we grew up with like Charles Bronson. You know what I mean? Like we grew up, it was a little dirtier.
I mean, I remember Bronson. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah. And like, what was that one
Clint
that he
Eastwood,
did?
I mean.
Oh yeah, Clint Eastwood.
Clint
I mean, he
Eastwood,
was
you know.
bad. He was a bad
No,
man.
what's the one?
Dirty
Every
Harry.
Which Way with Loose?
Yeah, that was
With
great.
Oh,
that
no,
was
funny
great.
movie.
No, see, that's 80s Clint
Yeah, that's
Eastwood.
80s.
That's 80s
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood. Yeah.
70s Clint Eastwood, you get into the Dirty Harry.
Yeah, Dirty.
Yeah, Dirty Harry. I
And
never
then
remember
Mike
Dirty Harry.
The
The
Good,
king
the
of the
Bad, the Ugly.
one-liners. I mean, he was
Yeah.
He was.
He
And
was-
they didn't seem bad.
probably
They didn't seem
before Schwarzenegger. There was Dirty Harry's one-liners.
yeah.
You know?
right.
Yeah, I mean.
And
that
you know,
was-
he took which one did he take from Seven Samurai from Kurosawa? Was it The Good, the Bad, the Ugly? Do you know who Kurosawa is? Kurosawa
Yeah.
is like the Spielberg of Japan.
Yeah. Yep. No, I didn't remember.
So he did Seven Samurai, and then Clint Eastwood basically just made it
Maybe
a western. You know,
turned into a western.
I'm not sure about that, but yeah.
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
He's like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
whatever.
it's The Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
You know, it's the internet. You can believe it just because you said it.
You could no. Look it up. I knew that before the
I
internet.
got the internet really right here. I could check. But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
He
fact
could.
check
Yeah,
it,
he doesn't feel like.
so-
Yeah, no fact checking.
No
My
fact
favorite
check.
Kurosawa film is I think it's called Dreams or something. The one where it's like a collage of his own dreams and whatnot. It's not very narrative and it's it's a non-plot, but
Huh.
gorgeous beyond belief.
Shot really well.
Oh my God,
Have
it's
to look- have to check it out.
incredible. Yeah. That's my favorite Kurosawa film. Striking, gorgeous. But yeah, did you study other directors at all? Like, do you have a favorite director?
I did. I studied some of Ron Howard's stuff, and I like Spielberg. I'm a big Spielberg fan. I'm a big Edgar Wright fan from like Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, okay,
At
yeah.
World's End, Baby Driver, that kind of
That's
thing.
the guy who does that great. Yeah, he's like an editing master. That guy.
Yeah, he has a really unique editing style of
Yeah.
his movies, and they're quick cuts, and
Yeah.
it's
And those transitions.
very
like, you know,
very unique
those
transitions.
Yeah, the transitions.
So
are
I'm like, oh, I need to work those into my films, but I haven't
Yeah.
found the spot yet to do that. Yeah.
I did get to the point where I actually started thinking about transitions before I went on
Right.
set. You know, like, not those transitions, but you know, it's interesting how as you evolve as an artist, you
Right,
start
because
to
I'm like,
think
he
more.
must be thinking about these. When you do a transition to
Oh, God,
something
yeah.
else that matches up, I'm like,
Oh yeah, no, he's
God, I
thought
mean,
about every single one of those transitions.
Right.
You know, but it's not, in our first year. I've only been directing film for a year.
right. So I'm in the same.
Yeah, we're in
over
the
here.
same boat, you know. But yeah, like you grow into it, you know. I think as a director too, it's like to give there's something about making a safe space for the actor, but also demanding that you get the right performance.
Right.
Because at the time that they're doing it, as an actor, we know how difficult it can be sometimes when it's not right, or when you're asked to do it over and over again, or if you have a teacher or something that says, hey, you know what, like this is a safe space, but you're not there. You know, like, right. So, but ultimately, I think that they want you to take them there if they can't get there on their own, which is why I'd like to work with somebody who just goes there and you got to pull them back.
Right.
You know, but sometimes when we work with newer actors, and I work with kids a lot, you know, you got to get them to go a little bit further or get it right, because otherwise the narrative doesn't work.
Right.
You know what I mean? They take your audience in the wrong place, to no fault of their own. It's your fault.
Right.
Because you didn't ask them to do it again right, or in a different way. You didn't explain it to them right and leave them enough creative room to get it right and claim it.
I
for
can
their
imagine
own,
with
you know?
kids too. You have to watch their mood, because if you
got to watch their food.
No, the mood, because the wrong message can really send a negative spin on their ability to bring the scene
Right.
out.
And I hadn't worked with a lot of kids as an actor, so when my films have been all had kids in them as well.
Yeah.
And then like with Art of the Deal with Ansley, and then
Yeah.
she's now little Z.
Yeah.
But she came in strong on the Art of the Deal. But I found myself like them looking at. It's so funny when you get on set and they're like looking at you. You're like, whoa. Oh, you want me to say something? Oh, that's right. I am the director. So, and then obviously the kids are, she was like, very receptive to a lot of it, but I didn't realize that that's like, I gotta I got to direct her. I got to tell her what she wants because she doesn't know.
The difficult thing for me is that they don't follow subtext the same way adults do.
No, I know, and that's the thing is like with John with that, I didn't have to tell him anything. He knew exactly how to go, but they don't understand the whole the funny thing and this is innuendos and all this stuff and funny.
Sometimes I find myself over explaining it, but I'll have 5 kids. I've done films with only children.
Right, you have.
There's like 5 kids, and you're like, all right, listen, I gotta get you to here, and you start trying to explain it. You see them fading out. They're like, kids don't want to listen to adults. We're like, we don't, they're kids.
Right.
They don't want to listen to us. So sometimes you just have to be the cheerleader or whatever it is you got to be, and you just keep trying until you get something you can use,
Absolutely.
But I think at the end of the day, when these kids see themselves on the big screen, man, it blows them away.
Yes.
And the last thing they want to see is a bad performance.
Right.
But I don't know if I go over. I probably don't really go over like 7 or 8 takes.
I don't think I haven't either. No, I've been lucky that I've cast the right people, and I've learned that too. Casting the right people.
Yeah, casting is wildly
casting
important.
is more important than I ever thought. I'm as being an actor, and you're like hoping to get cast. And you're like,
I learned that in theater, though. Casting is all
right.
I've
done some theater too as well.
Yeah.
So
I loved theater, man. I don't have the time for it.
It's very time consuming.
Yeah,
Go to rehearsal
it's too
after
much.
rehearsal after rehearsal, and tech, and then it's just like so much. But it's nice to have an audience there.
It's great when you have even as a director, it's very interesting to see live performers doing the work, and then you're sitting with the audience as it's happening in real time. And then you'll find out instantly how you did. It's very different than film. Watching watching a film, one time in a theater with one group of people is very different than going every night and having a new audience come in to watch your work that you're not in but you put up. And it's a wildly exhilarating experience.
Yeah,
I loved it, man. I totally loved it. But it was different times. I was doing theater in New York before 9/11. And after 9/11 happened, everything changed. It just changed.
I'm sure it did.
And I'm like, I gotta get out of this. Right. But all right. So, what would be the greatest thing you could achieve? Like, what would be the ultimate goal for you?
Creatively,
yeah.
I would like to write. If I could write professionally,
yeah.
I think that's where I think my progression along. Because, like you said, because you asked if I did cinematography stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I like it, but I don't think I'm great. I'm thinking I'm great at it. So I think I found that writing is my favorite thing out of all of.
So do you struggle with it? Do you have to force yourself to sit down and write a page before you start your juices get going, or do you just love it and just write and then go, well, that's garbage, but that's cool, and keep?
I'm starting to come up with this kind of like routine that I have a space that I sit in my house, and then I put classical music on.
Oh, cool.
And some days are easier where it'll just come to you. And then some days it'll take me a good 2 or 3 hours. So I need a good span of time if I'm going to get anything written, because some of those times are just 2 or 3 hours of me. I'll sit down and I'm like, nope, I'll get right back up. And I'll pace my house and I'll sit back down. I'm like, nope, and I'll get right back up. And I keep forcing myself to. And I know they say sometimes you shouldn't force yourself to, but I can get to that space if I can give myself a good hour or two to focus. And then some days it's just, what I've really learned lately is if something comes to mind, write it down.
Oh yeah.
Because I would no, I'm on this part of the script. I have to write what the next scene for the script, and I'm like, I'm thinking of like the end, and I'm I'll just wait. And I'm like,
oh god, and it's gone, and it's lost
gone,
forever.
and even if it comes back, it's not even good. It was not even close to what it was the last time.
I have to tell you, worse than that is being a musician and having to hum something into some sort of recording device like you're like a lunatic, and then you got to listen to it back and be like, well, what is that? Is it the drums? Is that the bass? Like you don't even know what
at the time you do, but then now you don't know.
Yeah, and you're like, what is that?
Right. Shouldn't have been all that cough syrup you were drinking. While you were.
It's funny.
Recording.
It's literally I've sang something into my phone and then gone back and listened to it and be like, that's drums, man. That's not guitar. That's not, like whatever I thought. I'm like, I'm singing the drums, but at the time I didn't know, when I was singing it, so.
Yeah, no, I need to write it all out. Because even if I write like a bullet point. It's not the same level as
Oh,
it
you
was.
go all the way with every detail.
I
that
need
you
to
can...
do that, or it's not the same feel. Because and when I think of it, I'm in the moment at that moment.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
oh my God, this is amazing, and you're feeling it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you're like in the character.
Are you willing though to change it when it comes into the story, or do you try and wrap the story around what you've wrote that you thought was great?
I'll change it, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy because you write those great scenes and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and you're like, oh.
We had this
I don't wanna-
conversation
I don't
out in the
wanna-
hallway where sometimes great movies are just a compilation of great scenes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and what we remember about great movies are the
Aren't
great scenes.
Yes,
You know?
absolutely.
So, and when you look at a guy, what's his name, who did like Twin Peaks? What's the director who did Twin Peaks and Mulholland Drive and all that?
Yeah.
So
it'll
he's,
come to me
yeah.
probably as soon as we stop.
Yeah, as soon as we're off there. Somebody tell us, please. So, you know, so that guy's a meditator. And what he does is he just winds up coming up with, not during your meditation, I meditate as well. When you meditate, you're supposed to not have any thoughts. You're working,
Correct.
you know, to clear the mind and whatnot. But then, you know, you get these little gifts, you know, like Michael Jackson would say, it's like catching a leaf falling from a tree, you know. So he just writes out all these.
David Lynch.
David
by the
Lynch,
way.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's my fact check.
Thank you, audience,
Google.
for not helping.
Thank Google. For
Thank
that
you,
one.
Google audience member. So,
They're always there.
so David Lynch, you know, and he obviously is a weird guy, but when he talks about it, you know, he literally just compiles, you know, 70 of these little vignette scenes, and then finds a narrative through it.
Right.
And that's how he creates these masterworks of cinema, you know. Whereas if you were to try that, if you or I were to go to Hollywood and say, well, I have this group, they'd be like, get out. You know,
Right.
and
I,
don't
well,
ever
yeah,
come
I see
back.
that all the time, and I'm
You know,
like,
like,
you're amazing that things get through, and you're like,
So Gregory has got a question. He wants to know what's the most important thing about filmmaking that Chris has learned since taking on the directing role.
I know where he's going with this too. I think.
And he did bring in David Lynch just about a second after I
Oh,
said it.
thank you,
okay.
Gregory.
Thanks,
you.
Greg. I knew you'd be on it. Communicating with the crew.
Now, this is Gregory, your DP?
Yeah. Well, we would shoot something. We would
The most important thing is find a new DP. Oh,
That's right.
Whoa.
New cinematographer. I think we need right now.
No.
No, I know this because he brought this up. We would shoot something, and I would be like this, and he'd be like, "Well, what are we doing? Are we moving on? Are we doing another take?" And I'm like, "Let's do another take." So yeah, he would get like, "You need just like," but I was just in my head still being like, "I don't know, was that what I mean?" So I think I needed to know more what the scene was like. What I wanted from the scene. I think that's learning what I wanted from the scene more than me not knowing what to say to people. I just wasn't sure. I'm like, is that what I wanted or is that not what I wanted kind of thing?
I might be the opposite. I might have something too solid in my head, and I have to leave room for a guy like him to give me his ideas and then say, that's a better idea. You know the camera better than I do. I had this in my mind, you know, and like, I work with Ron Bourdain, and he's the exact opposite of me. You know, he's more of a quiet guy, and and I'm like, never shut up. But yeah, so he probably gets tired of me explaining my ideas to him, you know, when we're coming into a scene, because I'll call him on the phone and be like, all right, so, you know, this is what we're going to do, you know, and he's like, hey, you know, he's like, all right, dude, like, whatever, like, when I get there, you tell me again, because I'm going to, you know, but I most certainly, if my DP speaks up, I listen.
Right.
You know, like.
Well, and the same with Greg, too. And I think with Art of the Deal, too, it was a 6-minute short, and I come with, like, pages and pages of, like, storyboards and camera positions. And he's like, yeah, I think that's a little overkill for that. And I'm like, well, I just want to be prepared. And I think maybe I got too confused. It was just too much. And I'm like, it should be simple. And he's like, just be simple shots. And I was like getting into like, oh my God, I want to be the next Edgar Wright in this movie. And I'm like, let's just do it one thing at a time.
I am trying to get Greg to call in, but his response is, that wasn't a loaded question. I recently got to experience the brain meltdown you run into while directing. I totally get, Chris. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah. If
I want to hear about this brain meltdown.
Yeah, maybe he should call in and tell us about
Maybe
that.
he should call in.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, if he's talking about,
that.
was he talking about us, like with our?
Oh,
yeah,
I'll bet you he's calling
Let's
in
find
now.
out. Let's find out.
Hi, you're on the air.
All right. I called in now.
Yep, that's you.
Domino's Pizza, can I take your order?
Are you talking about our situation?
Say again?
Are you talking about our situation with Little Z?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I was actually just putting together questions to keep it moving. It was not loaded a question, and I think we spoke about the brain problem that you get when you're directing and you shut down.
Yes.
I know. I get it.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know if I've ever shut down. I did have one problem one day where I had to say, all right, I need 5 minutes to figure this out. But what exactly are you guys talking about?
With Little Z, we if you're talking about Little Z, we had some special effects. All the special effects, we had appliances on. We had blood gag.
Yeah.
Blood's supposed to shoot and everything, and we were shooting with the sun going down too at the same time.
Oh boy.
And it just wasn't. Nothing was happening, and I was like, oh my god,
You're gonna lose the day.
I'm gonna lose a day, and I'm renting the house because I rent Airbnbs.
Yeah.
So
I know other filmmakers that do the same. Yeah.
They works really well. And it's cheaper
Yeah.
than going to the film convention. So it was just, I kind of just shut down like that, and Greg was like getting frustrated because he's like, what do we do? Because he wants to shoot something, and I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore. I just kind of completely shut off, and I was just kind of walking around like a zombie, and like that as a director, I'm like, I just lost control of that whole situation.
Yeah, that happens though.
Sometimes, especially on indie film sets or student sets or something like that, if you don't, as a director, if you don't have the answer right away, then it's almost like an invitation for everybody to come up with their point of view.
You do get
and at some point, it turns into a brain meltdown. You have to at least clear the mechanism. You got to clear that away. You got to say, stop it. Let me reboot. Let me hold, please. And then you reboot and you go, look, just go back to your script. Go back to your storyboard. Everything you did. Right. Let's go back to rehearsal. Let's go back to one. Let's get this right.
Chris is very organized, and he's very specific. He's very prepared. And I'm very much the same way. So when we were shooting that Little Z and the blood gags weren't working and the makeup was taking way longer than it should have, I could physically see Chris kind of dip more and just get frustrated and didn't know what to do. And it's one of the situations we were running out of time. And I had to kind of smack him in the face and say, all right, here's how we do this to finish and get you a movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what he did.
That's a good crew.
Yeah. No, it's a good DP guy. He just
pushed forward.
Pretty much slapped me in the face. He's like, we need to shoot something, or we're not doing it. So I'm like,
maybe you're just putting way too much weight on that one scene.
Yeah. I was putting that in defense of our special effects guy, JD Ellis, which is an amazing special effects guy. I didn't budget enough time for that. Yeah. For all the special effects stuff that was going on.
And you put Magic Hour on top of it.
And I put magic. It happened to be magic hour at the end of the day. Yeah. It had to be like John was there. He had a hard out at a certain time. Yeah. And our special effects guy had to be in 2 or 3 places at one time, and it's almost impossible. Yeah. So moving forward, that's one lesson I learned is like we're gonna schedule more time for all that stuff to.
I've done scheduling right, and it's worked out on my behalf, but then you almost wonder like, all right, I must have missed something because this shouldn't be going this well. Like, right? But I've been in schedule situations that were just a nightmare, and you're like, oh my god. One time I was in theater though, and I had a meltdown, and the lighting guy, I was like, dude, go and do, and this guy was a pretty good lighting guy. He worked on Wicked and the whole bit, As a matter of fact, while we were on he's, the seats are raked and he's got a 4x8 sheet of plywood with the plot to Wicked in my theater. He's working on it when I don't need him, And finally we were having a problem, and I was like, I just had nothing, and he had to step in. And then afterwards, I went over to him, and it was just 2 minutes. It took the guy to but he just wasn't overloaded. I was completely overloaded. And then sure enough, an hour later I went over and I'm like, oh, thank God, dude. Thank you. Like, I owe you a beer. But that was that, you know what I mean? And you go on,
So, Gregory, do you have a favorite moment working with Chris over here? Or a worst
it was
moment?
Probably, you know what? Every project that I've worked with Chris has been a different kind of pleasure. The first thing we did, Art of the Deal, was great because I didn't know him from some guy on the street, and he just immediately impressed me with how prepared he was and how he just exuded some sort of professionalism that I was not necessarily accustomed to. And then we did, was it Daddy's Little Girl? Was that,
Right.
That was you, right, Chris?
Yep.
Or was that a John?
No, that was mine.
Okay, and so that was another situation where he was just completely prepared, and I just walked in and shot it, and that was great. And then Little Z was great in its own way as well. So I just really enjoy working with Chris and his team.
So can I ask you, do you like to have be part of the pre-production and talk about scenes and have input, or
Certainly help.
do you prefer that, or you'd rather just be more, show up and, be more active on the day, on
I think
the
you'd
set?
probably prefer to get paid to do all that stuff. And,
Well, so you have to, when you work with me, you kind of get a choice. You can either have me very involved, even in shot selection and all that stuff, or just walk in with the camera and shoot your shot list.
Gotcha.
There's not a whole lot of in between there.
Gotcha.
Right. But that's what impressed me on Art of the Deal, because that was my first thing, and I was I prepared a lot, but when I got on set, I felt kind of lost.
Yeah.
And Greg stepped up, and he really came through, because those camera shots are very good. And
Yeah,
I couldn't have done it with I think the camera people we had before, it wouldn't have been nearly.
Oh, so he's the guy who stepped up in the last 2 days.
Greg stepped up, yeah.
Yeah.
No, he contacted me because I put it out there on OIF, and I was like, oh my
this
God.
thing's ready to go.
Yeah.
Who can show up with a camera?
Because that seems to be the ongoing theme with a lot of my projects is, I think as indie and you're not getting paid, people drop off, and it's just like, oh my God.
No, on these projects that you've directed, did you have a first AD, a second AD, anything?
I had a
like
first
that?
AD, yeah.
You had a first AD.
I tried to have a first AD to help.
Yeah.
Run
And
the.
Did they really step up and take all the pressure off? Kind of run the set, kind of thing. Or?
Art of the Deal, no. That was a newer person that I went to school with, and they were new to the industry. Right now, we have a good first AD,
Right.
Aviva Christie, and she is really phenomenal.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's very she'll yell at you. Doesn't matter who it is.
We fight constantly on set because she's always lighting a fire under my butt to do stuff.
Yeah, she's on the time.
Did she have a bullhorn? Because when they get a bullhorn, and they're shouting on the set and keeping everybody in line.
I don't think she needs a bullhorn for that, but she's very good to keep everybody in line and keep the production moving.
Yeah.
Is there any way to see any of these online, or?
Two of them, Art of the Deal and Daddy's Little Girl, are on YouTube on Ballinger Films. If you look up Ballinger Films on YouTube. Little Z I was holding on to because I'm going to release it together with the 6.
Is it Ballinger, like Ballinger
Ballinger
Films?
Yeah.
Okay.
And now, do you have a film in the OIF gun that we're waiting to pull the trigger on to go and watch all the films?
Nothing right now.
No. Oh, okay. So because I have 2.
Nothing for OIF right now.
No, but the one that we were supposed to go and view in February. Or
No,
March
I
or
don't.
whatever.
Speaking of the devil, Greg, I think after
We lost him, so he's
Yeah.
he's gone. But Greg made his own movie after working with us. He was like, "Yeah, I think I can. Let's do this," because we had a good crew and a good group, and he wrote his and shot his own film.
And is it?
It was for the Rush Challenge.
It is. So it's waiting to be
waiting to
be screened.
And it turned out really well. It turned out really good.
That's cool.
Because he's a very good editor too.
Okay.
He does all his editing too.
Does he do all your editing?
He hasn't. I've used a couple other people, but moving forward, I'm going to use him because he's really good at.
You mean beg him?
Yeah.
Editing is the one job.
We'll see how
if you
this.
can edit.
We'll see how this crowdfunding campaign goes,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
we'll see
yeah.
how much.
Editing
anybody
is,
gets.
there's three. You make the movie 3 times.
That's
You
right.
know, when you write it, when you shoot it, and when you edit it.
Yeah.
And that editor boy, he got a lot of say in it.
He does, and he's really good at it, and he's really good on set because if he's thinking that forward to the editing process. Then
But you've edited your own short, the Travel Channel stuff that you did. You edited yourself, so you do have a grasp of.
I do
what it is.
and I like editing. I really like it. It's just it's a difficult. It's not easy.
Yeah, I actually enjoy editing, and he would consider himself a professional editor. That would be one of your strongest traits, no?
Oh, well, it's something I've been doing since way
Yeah.
back when.
What machine did you start with?
Well, it was actually
Were you cutting it?
analog. It was machine to machine. It was
Yeah.
Betacam and
Yeah.
and
So you
then
like with
digital.
a razor blade?
No. Videotape. Videotape. When you had a machine, a source machine and a record machine, and you had to control the machines, and it's all mechanical. It's all linear
Yeah.
editing, which means you have to cut your first scene first and your second scene second.
And you had to
you're
go in and-
really, it's kind of more difficult to come back and it made effects a lot more difficult. So when you're
Yeah.
dealing with analog, and I still have some analog. I still have machines that I've had for 20 years. I've kept.
Wow.
I've actually still have here, almost nostalgic, but they still work.
Yeah.
25 years
That's awesome.
later, and those machines are still working. I could implement them into an editing system and actually, cut films together on tape.
Would it
which
be
is
interesting to
crazy.
shoot something and then put it through that machine to get a look of a time period? Is that a
No.
possibility? Or no, it
He's
doesn't
like,
work
no.
like that?
Okay, so 1995, 96, nonlinear, computer-based editing has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Which means those machines are dinosaurs, and
Yeah.
but the it's been around. It's been around since anybody who's learning film weren't even born.
Yeah.
Or just they were in diapers. But it's kind of like one of those. Why would I ever go back to taking a razor blade and slicing film?
Yeah.
It's for those guys. My generation grew up editing videotape.
Yeah.
But the guys before me were
Yeah, they
splicing
literally
film,
cutting
and they were
film.
doing that in television news stations.
Yeah.
They were actually shooting 16 millimeter film
And cutting it.
and getting it developed and splicing it and cutting it and actually creating newsreels on film
Every day.
every day. I'm
I had
sure
to
the
cut too.
turnaround
That's
time
impressive.
wasn't
Yeah,
all
that's a
that
lot.
great,
Yeah.
but
impressive.
editing video was, I stepped away from that in 96, I
Yeah.
think,
Like I started out in at music engineering. Yeah, you had to cut tape. We did
Yeah,
reel
you had
to
the reel to
Right,
reel,
right.
yeah.
And and the machine was larger than
Carts,
this table.
8-track carts,
and, Yeah, but what happened was then as we went towards digital, it was always better to run the audio through the machine. If you wanted to put it on tape, it was great because it had a natural compression factor to be
Right.
on tape. And then you'd take it right back off the tape and put it right back digitally, but it would do a thing to it that you couldn't do digitally yet. Nowadays, it's a little bit easier. Like nobody does that now. A couple of guys still record, analog,
yeah.
but for the most part, it's come so far. But I was curious if we wanted to do like an '80s nostalgia horror film. Can we throw it on tape and give it that
And-
look,
and
or
you
it's just
still see-
easier to put like a
you'll-
layer on it?
You'll still see you'll see a modern movie with dated, with a timeline back in the 80s, and maybe you'll see a news crew, or maybe there'll be a videotape, and they'll pop it in
Yeah,
a
yeah,
machine, and you'll go, oh yeah, and you
Yeah.
can watch movies like Broadcast News that
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
early 90s, late 80s, whatever,
Yeah.
and you'll see some of that technology is still,
Yeah.
it was there, and nowadays you can buy that stuff for pennies.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the thousands.
And it's like
just-
furniture.
It is.
It's like
More like
humongous
boat
piece
anchors,
of-
but
yeah.
yeah.
It is like furniture.
It's
Yeah.
like furniture.
I still have videotapes. I still have a whole stack I have cases of videotapes from 1990.
Oh, really?
That
I don't.
You know?
I don't keep anything.
Yeah.
Guitars and stuff like instruments. I
Right.
keep
Right.
amps.
Right.
I keep stuff like that. But like no media. No,
Right.
like all my CDs. Like forget it.
Were you a big
Yeah.
80s horror fan then?
I was a huge horror fan until I had
Because I'm a
children.
big 80s.
Yeah, I
just
know
horror fan overall,
every
but-
horror film. Literally up until a certain point, I saw every horror film.
Because I think that's why I like to make horror
Horror
movies.
film.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you know there's something that happened with Little Z, right? So we screen it. So this guy makes a movie. He didn't see it. So this guy makes a movie with
I
this
didn't
little
see it.
girl who is a zombie.
Yep.
And gets and attacks people and bites them on the neck and kills them in this movie, and blood is squirting, right?
Little Z.
Little
like
Z, right? So-
Little. And
Yeah,
then
I don't have that one up
Okay.
yet.
Yeah, that one's not up. So it's a great film. It's definitely a great film, and and it looks spectacular, and it all works, right? So this little girl is in the theater watching herself do this, right? And the rest of us are like, "Holy cow! This little kid just killed 2 adults, and blood spurting all over," right? So then Madison Bowman's film comes on, which has some pretty graphic scenes in it as well. But you don't actually see anyone get killed in this film, in Madison's film. And actually, my kid's in it, and it was really tough for me to watch my own son get killed.
Right.
Right. And then there's just a little pool of blood that comes out. Right. So it's a very different type of violence. Right.
Right.
This little girl runs out of the theater while we're screening it and goes, "Oh my God, that film is terrible. That you can't film that. That's not right. That's not right." And everybody out in the hallway is like, "You just ate 2 people on film, kid." You know what I mean? Like you just like killed 2 adults with blood spurting all over.
I just heard that story the other day. Sevilla told me that story.
Yeah,
I didn't realize
yeah.
that had happened.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a cute story.
It is
you
a
know?
cute story,
It's
yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
But it's
It was tough for her to get to do that. She didn't.
She didn't want to do it?
Oh, it took a lot of time for her. She was just very nervous to jump because she was jumping on John
Yeah.
and then ripping the prosthetic, and she didn't want to.
Oh, she did it with her teeth. She like had to rip it with her
Yeah,
teeth. You got
just
in there,
bite on it and pull it, and it.
and then you guys had some sort of pump and was sending
yeah.
stuff out.
So what is the big challenge of doing a zombie film these days? I mean, is it just all the blood work, or getting people to not, to stomach the kind of work that they're doing?
I apparently with a young female lead, it's getting her to bite prosthetics off of
Yeah.
people's necks.
Right.
You know, like, that's outside of the scope of
Do you make it
understanding.
taste better at least? Taste okay? Like
The
you
blood
know?
was tasted. Okay.
It's like
but I don't know what the
grenadine,
prosthetic
right?
tasted like.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but
probably
yeah.
nothing. It was probably latex.
But she
Like
did
that.
it. We finally got her.
Yeah.
We finally got her to.
I actually love that story. I think
Yeah.
that story is fantastic.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to continue it. I got so much to say about it.
So now, you wrote all 6 episodes already?
yeah.
And how long are they?
They're between 14 and 20 minutes long.
And did you study so did you do it in a television format, or did
Yes.
you do it? You did. And then you
a
studied television format.
Yeah, I tried to do the 1 act, the 2,
because it's like a 4-act structure because of the commercial kind of thing.
I was trying
right?
to I was trying to get that right.
Yeah.
How a television show
Yeah,
goes.
yeah.
Because that's the thing is as a writer, I've been practicing different things. I'm like, okay, let me try to write an episodic.
Yeah.
And then my last thing, I was like, let's try to write a story of a bunch of people in one room that can't really go anywhere, and just to make that interesting.
12 Angry Men.
Like 12 Angry Men,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yeah. Another very good.
Yeah.
I've been.
You just described my last film set.
Really, it was all
12
in one?
Angry Men. So,
I lost
couldn't
one ear.
resist.
So all right, so these things are ready to go.
Yes,
And
they
you
are
are-
ready to go. They're ready to go. I've had a lot of people read them, and so I feel comfortable. I'll probably change. I mean, you're always rewriting scripts and stuff. But
what's your distribution plan for something like this?
I'm looking at some online platform
Yeah.
from either a Netflix or a Amazon, or
Yeah.
there's so many. I've researched. There's a lot of digital platforms out there, more than you realize.
Yeah.
So a platform like that,
Are you gonna self-distribute if you can't get a deal, or
yes.
yeah? So Amazon probably they seem to be
Yeah.
the more friendly of these self-distribution.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
They seem to be the friendliest. Maybe not the easiest, but the friendliest.
Well, at least
friendliest.
it's an open structure where
It is an open
anybody can do it. So
Yeah.
the next step, I think, is finding a place to host the distribution. I don't know. Is that Vimeo's offering a resource that you can actually host your stuff, so that because you just can't send it to
Send it to
Amazon.
them.
You have
Yep,
to
yep.
actually find someone to host the content, and then you worry
Right.
about licensing it out to whatever platform.
Absolutely.
So,
So when you wrote it, did you know all the way through what you were going to do, or did you write an episode and then say, okay, where do I go from here? Write another episode, or did you know the ending and work backwards? Like, how did you do it?
I kind of knew what the ending was, but I kind of just worked my way through.
So you had a clear vision of where you were going,
Kind of the clear vision of the finale.
but you
let's
didn't
just
write
say-
it backwards. You wrote it
I didn't
forward
write it backwards. I wrote
to
it forward knowing that.
knowing you needed to get there.
And I have stuff for the next season too already in my head.
Oh, you
I have,
do?
I have all that.
And now,
Just
how
start out.
good did you get with like subplots and all these other ideas? Like,
I'm pretty good. That's the other thing too. Is like the cast has quadrupled because I have the
Oh, I bet.
neighbors,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she has a best friend, and they're school kids, and like all this stuff. So there are other subplots, and then that's what I like about writing is I was writing it, and then there was others. I was writing as I was getting further along. I was writing subplots about. About my main character and stuff, about backstories and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
writing
yeah.
those backstories so to make
Yeah.
it more juicy and
oh, absolutely.
and stuff like that. So those came in later. And some of them were to fix. When people would read it, they were like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I had to write
Yeah,
stories in to make
to make it all
did
work.
you create your Bible, your universe for that show? I mean, do you have like just an overall? This is what's going to happen without getting into the scripts. Each episode.
Yeah, like the
A
rules
lot
of the
a lot-
world. Like,
yeah, I mean, Lucas did it for Star Wars. He
Yeah.
created so much more beyond what you see in the films.
Yeah.
But a lot of directors or writers will actually create. I've got to go back to my universe, which is
Right.
Yeah.
These are these characters. They might not be in this episode, but this is the plots that's gonna kind of evolve around.
And it's funny you mentioned that because that happened later in the writing.
Yeah.
I didn't have a clear vision, but now I have this. It's turned into a whole universe.
Yeah. And it has all its own rules, and you have to adhere
Yeah,
to
there's
them. and you have
rules,
to-
and then there's
Yeah. Your characters have rules. And,
Yeah.
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 So that developed as I wrote it. I didn't have a clear universe that I.
No, yeah, it didn't come to you as one, and then you went out. It developed as you went, as you stumbled across problems and said, "Oh, how do I get from here to there?" You realized there was a problem or a rule that needed to be created or
Correct.
whatever, and
Correct, because
and then forward you go.
I know a lot of writers that write an outline of like, okay, this is from A to Z.
Yeah.
How the story's going to go, and I haven't
I'm
done
actually
that
working
yet.
on that now with a couple of people, and it's quite lovely, but it's painstaking and it's long. But ultimately, you get a better product.
Right.
We're hoping. But we went all the way down to literally bios of every character and all of their traits before we even went to the plot, and then
Well,
the
I-
plot,
And I did that too. I have a dry erase board, and I put up all the names, and then I wrote out all their characteristics. So then they weren't all the exact same. I didn't want them to be
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the same character. So they were different ethnicities and different. They
Yeah.
like different foods and different thing like that. So I went through all that.
So now, having done all this work, is media different to you? Do you see great work quicker, or do you see bad work quicker?
When you're watching something,
Yeah.
yes, I think so. I
It
think
changes
can-
things, right?
It does.
Does it take it away though? Does it diminish the flavor a little, or?
I don't think so. Not for me yet.
No?
It hasn't. I just like, oh no, I can see that that's what's wrong with that or what's right with that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
more exciting for me to be able to
Yeah.
break it down now instead of being like, because as an audience member, sometimes you sit there and you're like, I don't know what's wrong with it. I didn't like it. So, but
Yeah,
now it's
you
just
didn't
like,
know.
I know.
Now you know what
Now I
happened.
know
Yeah,
what's
now you
wrong
know
with
what
it. So now I
happened.
know
It's
what
like
I've done.
the end of Game of Thrones. You're like, well, they can't build. It's only shut it down. Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to be compelling. So sorry.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like,
Exactly.
So sorry, guys. We can't. Even with the last Star Wars, I actually thought they did a pretty good job considering the job that they had to do was wrap up 9 films. And I thought they actually did a pretty incredible job of getting everything buttoned up.
Right.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad film.
I mean, it's a complex story
you know,
with complex characters.
and generational. like 3 generations, and I thought they did a great job.
I still like going back to the 70s with Star Wars and going
The
back
first
and
one's
going,
incredible.
You know what? That holds every bit of water. I mean, if you want to pick apart the animate
The effects, the
animation, the effects, and all that stuff, but it's still to this day, 20, 30 years.
I don't know, what, 77? 77.
May of 77.
So
Yeah,
40,
it was one of the first
43
years,
years later, it still holds
up.
up.
I just watched it last month, or 2 months ago with my 8-year-old, with Kyle.
It was one of the first films I went and saw in the theater. Yeah.
Same time, you watch some of the, watch the first Star Wars, and it was, okay. Not Star Trek. Watch the first Star Trek, or watch the Disney. What was that Disney movie that came out back then with the robot? Early 80s, late 70s.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah, Disney had come out with a.
And it just doesn't work.
I mean,
now?
even Tron, the original Tron. That was real, basically,
Some of the 80s were cheesy.
Yeah,
they were pushing though. They were pushing,
But, Lucas definitely said, I'm not going to be limited to this. I'm going beyond that, and it held up. Held on for 43 years later.
Yeah,
it's
ridiculous.
Props.
I'm not a huge fan though of the whole hero's journey anymore. Like, I'm done with it.
No, because I'm trying to study that to learn that.
I'm much I remember. I think you said something to me like keep it strange when I did Torment, right? Did you say something to me about that? I thought at the after party when
I might have. That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Like, that was keep that. Yeah, because that was like an anti-plot, non-plot kind of movie. And I get tired of the hero's journey. I get tired of some of these things. It's like, listen, even I was watching something with my wife right now, and she's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Well, in 2 minutes, this is going to happen, and then that's going to, And it's like, and it's not that it's it doesn't ruin it completely for me. But
I prefer the anti-hero kind of anti-hero.
Oh, I love anti-hero stuff.
Breaking Bad, Dexter.
The reluctant hero, maybe.
Yeah. I just tired of the whole hero's journey.
Yeah, thing, I completely understand. I think I'm watching it because the next thing I'm writing is like a kind of a hero.
When you study the hero's journey and then watch the original Star Wars, you see how perfect it is.
Oh yeah.
And how simple it is. It's incredibly simple the way
but effective. It works.
It's wildly effective. It's absolutely perfect. And it's incredibly simple, and he gets it done, and then he keeps doing it though, and then it becomes the model for
every
an
other
entire
Marvel
culture.
movie since.
Like literally, it becomes our cinematic culture.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, actually, I got to tell you guys a cool thing. Do you guys know about this app called Letterboxd? So Letterboxd is almost like an IMDb, but it's got a social media aspect to it. So you can go on it and pick out a list of movies that you're into that you want to watch, right? So it's like your personal watch list, but then I can follow you and see what you're watching. See what your personal watch list is and see when you watched it. And if you write a review on it, I can read the review.
Gotcha.
And so I have a millennial in my life. I just want to confess. I know a millennial and I speak to them. And they're not bad people, but he's thinking about it.
I'm just trying to think where you're going with this. What's the millennial watching?
So the millennial is
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know.
He's the greatest cinephile in my life right now. He knows.
Well, all millennials are that.
He knows things. Well, he reminds me of me when I was his age, but I was alone. So he goes to all the foreign films. He watches a ton of foreign films. He's got no problem reading, the Chiron and the the lower thirds, right, all the writing. Like he's
just say Chiron.
Yeah, wow. sorry. So he has no problem. Really, his favorite director is what's that guy, Von Trier or whatever? Like a really outside crazy filmmaker. Okay. So I was like, dude, hook me up. Now he doesn't watch. Who are we talking about? Directed 2001 and all that stuff. He doesn't he's seen The Shining, but that was it. He hasn't seen some of the stuff that we grew up on. And I'm like, dude, you got to watch 2001. You got to watch what was the other one with the really super violent one with Stanley Kubrick, that weird
Oh,
Clockwork Orange, you know,
Oh,
like,
God, yeah.
you know, like, so to
Yeah.
have not seen the, you know, and,
Yeah, the
and the guy's you know, he's a total cinephile. But anyway, so he turned me onto this app, and now I can follow his watch list. Because I'm married with kids and a business and trying to make, I don't have the time to keep up with, you know, there's so much media coming at us. So I'm hoping that maybe I'm going to start talking about it more on the show. So it's called Letterboxd, and we could maybe all start to share our watch lists and see some of the great, because, you know, you get trapped with whatever Netflix tells you is a good movie.
Yeah, they're 1 through 10
you
now.
know,
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not good.
It's not that great. I look at it, I'm like, I don't want to watch anything on, and I don't, not just Netflix, but, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
No bash
Of
Netflix.
course, it could work against you. It could be a very embarrassing thing, and all of a sudden you have your nostalgic kind of weekend, and you're watching Dirty Dancing, and you're watching
Great film.
You know, I
Great
know,
film.
but all of a sudden Joe's going, he's tearing up because somebody put baby in a corner, you know, and he's tearing up in the corner, going, "Oh, Joe, no, Joe, no," you know.
Yeah, no, I you know, and it's funny too, right? So I'm looking at this guy's list, and I'm like, cool. I'm like, really? Cool. No. You know, he's like, you know, but all right, you know, he's,
I'll have to check that
especially
out.
some 80s films, you know, like,
So they do watch some of that stuff. Then.
yeah, like he'll, you know, some of that stuff was in there, but some of it's cool, like, but some of it's not. You know, like if The Thing, I'm like, we'll definitely watch The Thing.
Absolutely.
You know,
The original.
But then there were some other ones, you know, like Cat People, and
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like
So
erotic.
a lot of
in a
reality.
way,
Well,
like,
there's a lot more.
you know.
That's the other thing too. There's a lot more reality shows these days. So
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
seems to watch.
Yeah, I don't.
That more than-
I don't have broadcast television. I only have. So I don't get to see. Yeah, I only have like Netflix and
Right.
Hulu and Amazon Prime and HBO. So that's it. So and I'm pretty good with that. But then like there was my favorite film director is Terrence Malick.
Oh, he's
So,
great. Yeah.
yeah. So I just, you know, I had to buy that outside of that world because it didn't, they hadn't picked it up yet. So his last one was Hidden Life. I just watched it. It just came out finally a couple of months ago.
So as your millennial, is he discovering the '70s films? You know, Godfather and
you know,
Taxi
like
Driver
I had told you know, like the
I just
story.
watched that again, Taxi
One of them,
Yeah.
one of them was the story of O. You know, have you ever seen the story of O? It's a
No.
little bit of a erotic cinema kind of thing, but it's, you know, like, and that was from the 70s, and it happens to be a great film, but no, it didn't. He more or less stopped in the 80s, but that one was the only one I saw from the 70s. There was a couple though from the 60s and the 50s, there was a Billy Wilder, maybe two Billy Wilder films, and maybe a couple of things from the 60s, but the 70s were a strange time. Just a strange
'70s
time.
were, but
Yeah,
also
it was
brought us
strange
some
time.
great movies. I mean, the Rocky series started there,
And the
you
Star
know.
Wars, and yeah,
And
some of
Star
the
Wars,
some of the
Rocky.
and what's his name did a lot of work then. You know, Taxi Driver, and you know some of these films. And,
For comedy, I mean, you had Mel Brooks just
Spaceballs?
you know, well, that was '80s.
that was 80s.
That was '80s,
Yeah.
but you know, he started with Blazing Saddles.
Blazing
Baseball, that was
Saddles,
great.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
when did Young Frankenstein come out?
That was probably before Blazing Saddles.
Because that was
Oh,
absolutely
Yeah,
incredible.
that was a good one.
Incredible. Now that is a guy you'd want to work with, Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
That's a guy.
Oh,
you'd
Gene
wanna
Wilder,
work with.
absolutely. He was
You
amazing.
know,
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
somebody
I would,
I'd love to put a camera
He was
on
funny.
him. I don't know if he would almost scare me to work with him as an actor.
Right.
But I would love to put my camera on him. So we found one, Dean.
What's that?
I've answered your question. Who I'd like to direct.
We did. We finally.
I would like to
It
direct
took-
Gene
took
Wilder.
you a while,
Took
yeah.
a little while,
Gene
right?
Wilder,
Yeah, Gene Wilder. I'd like to direct.
that's a good one.
I would certainly stand on set with him as an actor, but
Or be on the set with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. 'Cause
Oh,
they did
my
it. How many
gosh.
times they did? They did that about
did. They
two or
made-
three times.
they
at
must have made a
least.
ton of money doing that.
Yeah, it just must have been really a
What
hoot,
the? When you watch
I
those
wanna-
things now, you know they're all
Right.
coked out of their minds. Like,
Well,
Richard
we don't
Pryor
know
is-
that for sure.
I mean,
but-
the guy you're looking at him, you're like,
so
dude.
I guess for Gene what I'm sorry, whatchamacallit, Mel Brooks. I mean, his first The Producers, 67,
Have you seen
Blazing
the original
Saddles.
producers?
and Young Frankenstein
I've
in
seen the original
74.
one, no.
It's great.
Both movies, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein
74?
in
For 74.
Then Silent Movie, High Anxiety, History of the World Part 1, which was a great movie. Spaceballs, and then,
Yeah.
you know, wonderful. But
And
Mel
what
Brooks
about
was-
Peter Sellers? Do you, if as a comedy
Oh,
writer, like,
yeah,
yeah.
How about how
There
I?
you go. There's another comedy.
Yeah, How I Fell in Love with the Bomb. Did you ever see Kubrick's first film? Technically, is I think How I Fell in Love with the Bomb. after he jumped in he got hired as a director for Kirk Douglas's famous movie. What was that huge production? Anyway, that's technically Stanley Kubrick's first film.
Yeah.
But then he does this other one, and it's Peter Sellers. And Peter Sellers is like an acting god to me. I mean, the guy was incredible. And not just the silliness of the Pink Panther.
He had a deadpan. You know, you never...
Like being there?
I don't think he ever cracked himself up. I don't know. I'm not sure if he ever thought he was funny.
No, and he wasn't,
like
and he
it,
wasn't
that's
nice
for
to people.
Yeah, well, we don't know that for sure, but
No. One of his
is that
wives
true?
just came out and said a whole bunch of stuff about him. Yeah. She loved him, but he was not a nice guy. But did you ever see the movie Being There?
No.
Being There's incredible Peter Sellers movie, man. Wildly incredible. And of course, How I Fell in Love with the Bomb is pretty insane. He plays multiple characters.
That's awesome.
For a very early Kubrick film, and and they go all the way through these weird,
Right.
and he just pulls them
I'll
all
have to check
off.
that out.
Yeah, that one's cool. Would you consider yourself a cinephile? Like, do you like to go deep on films?
Yeah, and I watch a lot
You do.
of stuff.
And do you like, like Train to Busan, let's say, that was like a zombie film, like from Korea or something in the last 2 years?
Haven't
Did you
seen
see that one?
No, I haven't
Have
seen
you heard
that.
of it?
Yes, I
Great
have heard
film.
of it. I have heard of it.
That's a great
But I
film.
try to watch a lot of horror films because I'm always trying to find a new angle because it always seems like it's been.
What about Midsommar? Did you see that?
Yes.
What did you? I haven't watched it yet.
Very
Yeah.
strange. It was very twisted.
And
But I liked it. It was.
It
different.
was good.
It was.
I haven't seen it yet. It's on my list.
Yeah, it was different. It was. I think it's almost kind of typical of what you kind of know what's going to happen in the whole thing. I mean, it's a cult.
Yeah.
It's a cult.
And it's the sun doesn't go down.
Correct.
It's Midsommar.
Yeah.
And which is an odd thing to do for a horror film, right? Like it's a risky thing, right? Plus your schedule now is different, right? Because you'd almost want to shoot horror indoors, control the light, right?
Right, or nighttime, just shoot all night.
Nighttime,
It's dark. It's dark.
Like it's going to be dark every night.
Right.
As long as it doesn't rain, we're fine. So this guy turns around and makes this incredibly bold choice.
Yeah, I guess it is a complete opposite choice of doing it in the bright day. Everything was in the bright
Everything
daylight.
is in daylight, yeah.
But it is scary that there could be this group of people that think that way.
It's that humanity
and
against
I like those
humanity.
movies that have that could be real.
Yeah.
That could be. There is a group
you
out
like
there.
that kind of thing? I like the supernatural.
I wish I could
thing.
write like that. Like I'm more of the slasher type of person.
How about Clive Barker? You like Clive Barker's work? He's one of my favorite authors. He's one of my favorite authors. The movies don't always come out. Well, some of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's
you can't put on screen most of what he writes.
Right.
The stuff that we get to see, like Hellraiser and some of these things, are from short stories. They're not his novels. His novels are incredible. You could never put it up. Okay, let me ask you a couple.
That's
other ones.
another good.
How about this guy Eggers? Have you seen The Witch and now this Lighthouse one?
Oh no, the recent one, Lighthouse one.
Yeah,
no, I
recent
haven't.
one. So
I haven't
that's
seen that
Eggers and The Witch. So he specializes in period pieces. So when you said you were working on something
one.
the Norse mythology.
Norse mythology, yeah.
His next film deals with Norse mythology, and I think it's maybe 800 AD or something.
Well, I like a lot of history stuff. So, and the Vikings and Norse mythology really interest me.
So that's his next film, as is some way, but it's like I think it's a horror again in that.
Right. Well, mine's not totally a horror. Mine's a story of Red Riding Hood, but I put it in Norse mythology.
Oh really? Oh wow, and it changes it. So you put it in there, and
I kind of put it in there, yeah, and
just change the mythos, and it changes the outcome.
Kind of changes the.
Wow. Oh,
mix it all
that's
together
super
and kind
cool.
of, yeah.
Can you let other people know how to do that? Because we keep seeing this.
I'm working on writing it. I'm not there yet, but I'm like, all right, let's take.
Oh my God. We see the same crap over and over again.
Right.
Like, thank you. You have a
Right.
creative idea.
Well,
You
it's because I wanted. I taught myself how to photography for a long time, so I wanted to do a Red Riding Hood photo shoot.
Oh, cool.
So I had the cape and everything. I was going to do it out in the woods and everything like that, and then it just morphed into I'm going to write a movie about it. So
Wow.
then I combined the Norse mythology, and I'm like, let's just combine those two stories together and
And see what
see where
happens.
what comes out of it.
Because that's what is that, Brothers Grimm or whatever? What's the original on that one? So it's very Saxon.
Well,
Yeah,
on the
I mean-
TV series Brothers Grimm, they came out. They had a Red Riding Hood.
They had a Red Riding Hood
version, an episode. It's a more modern TV
Yeah,
series. That's
But I
going
mean,
on.
like Red Riding Hood is like I found Norse gods that were like, because this story is like a story of like vanity. So there's a god, Norse god that's of beauty and vanity, and then the big bad wolf is going to be somebody who wants to be good looking, but he's not. So he's after
He's gonna take it from her.
yeah. So he wants it from her.
And now are the gods in the movie? Do you put the gods in
Well,
it?
these characters have those god names, and they kind of represent those gods, but they're not actually gods. They're actually real.
Okay.
they're actually
Okay.
real
But they
people.
represent in some way.
Yeah, whatever character they represent in Norse mythology is what they represent.
And they
here.
act accordingly, but they can't. We
Yeah.
can't get Deus ex machina. We can't have God from a machine. Like there's no. They don't have power. They don't have happenstance. They don't create changes outside of actual choice.
Right.
So they're people, but they represent these deities from Norse mythology.
Right.
Oh, that's great, dude. That's kind of cool, man. Let's hope
Yeah.
that.
So
Yeah,
I'm
because
excited to see where that goes.
yeah, I'm excited to see that too. What would you call it though? You'd have to let us all know as an audience that you took that's the idea.
Right.
So I guess you maybe don't have a title yet for that.
Well, I write titles like I called it Black Forest, but
to be announced.
Yeah, right. Instead of Little Red
but
Riding
that's
Hood,
another thing
Black
about writing
Forest.
is I'm trying to learn log lines because you got to come up with your
Yeah, right. Yeah.
your 2 or 3 word sentence
Yeah.
of what it is, and then because people are like, well, what is it about? I'm like,
Yeah. It's
you know,
about my inner thoughts.
it's inner thoughts. I can't tell you just yet. So that's what I'm saying. Like I'm still everything I do is to practice my writing.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to put a 5-minute last call on this
Yeah, no problem.
episode. So,
Awesome.
No problem.
but no, get your last licks in here.
So then, all right. So you're happy, like, because it's funny. What's his name? Quentin Tarantino says that too. He doesn't really think of himself as a. He does think of himself as a writer, not a filmmaker. He's
Right.
and his,
Well, you can see from his movies. He writes.
He's a writer, yeah. And he writes way more than he shoots. And
Right.
He gives it out to the people, and they're like, "Well, we can't shoot this." He's like, "No, we're not shooting that. That's what we're doing." You know. Like,
And he goes against everything because he will write 30-minute scenes.
yeah.
And you're like, they're talking heads for 30 minutes, but somehow it really
I know
works.
he's such a different kind of filmmaker. You love his
Yeah.
work, or
I do like a lot of his work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried to study that too, to try to figure that out. It's just
I like the early films. I'm just not a big fan of the later films, you know. And again, there's
like
just so
Reservoir
much.
Dog or like
Yeah, I mean, Pulp Fiction,
Pulp Fiction.
Dogs. I mean,
Yeah.
there's you know, there was a lot of stuff, and then more recently, it just seems like, again, just a lot of talking, and then 10 solid minutes of people shooting each other.
Well, the last one
yeah.
I wasn't as happy with the Hollywood.
Oh, you weren't happy with that?
It was okay. It was somebody described it as magnificent mundane, and that's what I kind of.
It was from the opening scene, shooting the car as the car is driving. I think that was like a 5-minute scene
Right.
of just the opening shot of the
On 70 millimeter.
On 70 millimeters.
Right.
You gotta imagine everyone's sweating when the film's gonna run out, and they probably did. The
Right.
film ran right out of the camera, and they go, "Yep, that's a take."
And they're paying 150 people, and they would have light scrims like larger than that wall.
Right.
You know, like in front of the car. Like, I mean, the amount of effort that goes into making this movie. So I went into it. I wouldn't go see it at first because I refused to watch that incident because I'd known what the film was about. I'm like, I'm not going to glorify that incident, you know, that happened to those people. And then finally my sister was like, yeah, you got to go see the movie, you know. And then she started bugging me about it. And I'm like, look, I know, I'm not the hugest Tarantino fan because of his violence. And I'm not going to go and watch this violent thing be glorified or whatever, right? And it turns out, so I had all this apprehension about the story because he took it, a regular story, you know, that we all know, especially, you know, our age. And when I finally sat down to watch it, yeah, it was a terrible middle act lull. Right. And then, but the life representing art, I thought that it was cool that, you know, Brad Pitt was who the other guy was always portraying on film.
I mean,
so I'm like,
they
so
acted
that's
well,
cool.
and it shot well, but
And then by the time we get to the end, like then my nervousness starts coming back. And I'm like, I don't really want to see this. Like, I don't have any need to see like what we all know happened. And then to have him flip it on us and have Brad Pitt be so badass, with his badass dog and then the flamethrower and the whole thing.
We waited a long time
And
to
I'm
get to
like,
that.
I walked out of the room twice. I put it on pause and walked out. I'm like, I got other things I got to do. I came back to keep watching it. I'm like, dude, pick it up already.
Right.
Let's go. But
So I'm not sure if he's my favorite.
yeah. But I thought that ultimately that was a work of art. Let's say that in all intents and purposes, it was a highly crafted work of art that had a tension that was built in, and he knew what he was doing to his audience all the way through. So I would give him kudos for the craft,
Well, because as a writer, I'm always doing it the opposite way. You're like, let me try to write less and show more. And he's like, I feel like he's the opposite of that. He's trying to, his scenes are just. And
like one of the shots, I was like, dude, really? That's your following shot? Like when he's riding the horse into that one area, or whatever, and I'm like, really, dude? Like, who built that track? Like, it's like the camera's like on a roller coaster. I'm like, that's your tracking shot, dude? Like, But I didn't know if it was meant to be the bad Western travel shot of the actual horse in a real incident, as opposed to the other guy who was a fake actor trying to be cool. Like, so it was like, I mean, the guy had me swimming.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you with the newer stuff. I think
I didn't watch *Inglourious Bastards*. I wouldn't even look at it.
That was very good.
I actually liked that. I didn't like what was the one in the cabin?
Django. I didn't watch.
Django. Not such a.
And then *Hateful Eight*. I didn't watch.
Yeah. *Hateful Eight* is extremely long. I've watched that.
And compressed 10 movies worth of violence in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like talk, and then crazy amounts of violence.
Yeah.
And, I'm studying this writer called Neil Gaiman. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's a novelist, but he's a scriptwriter as well.
Okay.
He wrote like the Good Omens, which is a TV show on Amazon.
Yes.
But he's very.
Oh, that's pretty smart. That's a pretty smart. Good Omens. I mean, it's the way it was written.
Right. I haven't seen it yet because I'm reading the scripts first, and then I want to.
Oh, cool.
Write it, and then watch it. But he's a very good storyteller.
Cool. And he writes books on screenwriting?
He's a novelist. Well, he's just a novelist, and then he's screenplay writer. He's a screenplay writer as well.
So he does both. So he does prose and he does screenwriting. Yeah. And now you're reading every script, or you're just reading one script, watching?
I'm reading all of Good Omens, and then I took his masterclass online.
Oh, cool. Cool. Oh, is that where I see him? Yeah. Yeah. He's got the black curly hair.
Yeah, he's black curly hair. He's a British guy.
Yeah. He does look incredibly interesting.
He's very interesting.
So when you joined Masterclass, you just did it for the one class? Or you
I've watched a lot. I've watched a lot of different writers. Aaron Sorkin, Shonda Rhimes, Grey's Anatomy, and
sure. And Ron Howard has one.
I did Ron Howard's directing class, which was incredible. It's one of the best classes on there.
Really?
Because he does a scenes class of one of his movies.
Yeah, and then
where he shows how to direct, and I learned a lot from how to.
David Lynch and Scorsese both have classes. Mm-hmm. So you bought the package where you can watch everything for 1 year, and it was only like $200 or something.
Yeah,
right?
It was a monthly fee that I'm paying for. Okay, right now. They've changed it to a monthly fee.
Oh, okay.
But it's really.
Can I get you to kind of log in on my computer over here?
I know. Log me in and save the password.
Just kidding.
Because I saw
just like Netflix now. I need your password.
Well, you know what else though? I do Audible, and I listen.
I do
Audible, man. Right now, I'm listening to a 39-hour book on. I don't even. It comes up next week. So next week we have Arlene.
Arlene's coming in.
Arlene's coming in.
Oh, wow,
man.
that'll be interesting.
And that's going to be some fireworks, let's hope. Right?
Yeah, you're going to need bigger.
Me and Arlene are just going to laugh, and no one's going to get it. So you're out of luck, buddy. And you said you're staying on as this kind of Ed McMahon kind of guy.
I like the Ed McMahon preference.
But
what was it? The hat? What was that? What was the Johnny Carson thing with the hat?
Actually, Joe.
I don't know.
Actually, Joe, I think we're shopping for a prettier version of Ed McMahon.
Oh, we're shopping.
We're shopping. Yeah,
really?
I might be.
Can we keep the shirt?
I might be being recast.
You're getting recast.
The role's being recast.
I will still play a role, but I might be offset. Being voice of God coming through here and there.
Cool.
So, but we are looking, and for those of you watching, if you know somebody who wants to chime in and kind of be just
Come on down and sit in.
Yeah,
and
sit in.
do the work
yeah,
that Dean
maybe.
does.
Just kind of chatting in from what's going on in the chat windows here, keeping things moving along. But it was fun. It was great.
Good.
So, is there
it was fun.
anything you want to end with?
Yeah.
Well, just thanks for having me, for one thing. I really appreciate it.
An absolute joy.
And,
it's
it's
been
I
great.
still want to find this Ballinger Films. I can't
I
find
will
it
help
on
you
YouTube.
find that,
and we'll post it too.
absolutely.
So
Just watch out for Little Z coming, the series, episode, season 1, and then hopefully coming out in the fall or beginning of next year, and then season 2.
And do you want to say hello to anyone? Where's his camera?
his
say
camera's
hello to
over.
anyone?
His camera's
There you
over
go.
there.
Hello, everyone. Mom and Dad might be watching.
Mom and
so,
Dad?
Yeah. So
Hi, Mom
hello,
and
Mom and
Dad.
Keep it clean. Keep it clean.
How
But
about we
yes,
do this
yes,
one?
there we go. With
We can do
coronavirus,
that,
this is
yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks,
But
both
thank
of
you so much
man.
for having me on.
Yeah,
I really appreciate
that's
it.
a joy, dude. Cool.
Okay,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you all.
I'm gonna silence the mics, and you can go to the graphic.
All right.